I'll get there. Okay, so under classwork, you will see that we have the study guide posted. And if you look at your lesson plans, I went ahead and included them for the remainder of the school year. So this week we're going to look at factoring quadratic trinomials. We're going to do some practice problems tomorrow. We're going to analyze the graphs of quadratic functions, look at transforming quadratic functions. Then Monday there's no school. We will work on the review Tuesday and Wednesday, and then finals are Thursday and Friday. So, for those of you who aren't going to be here and maybe need to take the final early, you can probably go ahead and start working on that review in the evenings. And if you have questions and need some help, just let me know ahead of time and I will be more than happy to go over it with you. We could probably even do that like in class tomorrow. So look over it and see. Yep. All right, so here we go. For today, we're going to look at factoring trinomials. So a few things I wanted to review with you before we get too much into this. Hopefully everybody knows these rules, but it's good to go over them again. Nobody needs to be on their Chromebook. It's on the board, and you can take notes on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, so it's good to know that a negative times a negative is a positive. I'm assuming you all know that. And a negative times a positive is a negative. If we're adding them together, a negative plus a negative just equals a bigger negative. And if I add a negative and a positive together, their sum depends on what the sign of the larger number is. So if it's a really big negative plus a smaller positive, then the sum's going to be negative. If it's a smaller negative plus a really big positive, then the sum will be positive. And you're probably thinking, okay, why is she reviewing this with us? Well, let me explain why. So ignore this problem here for a second. And let's think back to what we were doing in our previous section. Okay, in our previous section, I would give you something that looked like this, and I ask you to FOIL it. Yes? Does everyone remember how to multiply this out? We take the x and times it by the x, and I get x squared. X times 3 gives me a positive 3x. 2 times x gives me a positive 2x. And 2 times 3 gives me a positive 6. So we can see really quickly that we add these terms together. So I end up with x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, so let's think for just a second here. This number 2 and this number 3, they got multiplied together and gave me their product was my third term, right? Then the sum of the 3 and the 2 gave me my middle term. Let me say that one more time. I multiply these two numbers together and I get the third term. I add these two numbers together and it gives me my middle term. So keeping that in mind today, we're going to work backwards. I'm giving you this and I'm asking you to give me this. I'm asking you to factor it. Recall that factors are numbers. Okay, well, let me back up. What are factors of 10? Can anybody tell me what the factors of 10 are? 2 and 5. Why 2 and 5? Why are 2 and 5 factors? And they can be, specifically, why are they the factors of 10? Because if you multiply them together, they give you 10, right? That's what factors are, things that you multiply together. So if I'm asking you to factor this here on the screen, the reason I'm asking, or what I'm asking you to do, is come up with two things that can be multiplied together. So thinking about what we just got when we did the FOIL method. Okay, we looked for factors, or we came up with two numbers that multiplied and gave me the third term, which in this case is 18, and added to give me this middle term, and this middle term is -9. So I'm looking for two numbers that I can multiply together that give me 18. First of all, let's start there. What numbers multiply together to give me 18? Okay, 3 times 6, 1 times 18, and there's one more. 2 times 9. Okay, I know that I want their sum to be negative. I can't add two positive numbers together and get a negative, can I? But I can add two negative numbers together and get a negative. And a negative times a negative is a positive, correct? This was a positive 18. So which of these pairs add together to give me or multiply to give me positive 18 and add to give me a negative 9? The negative 3 and the negative 6. Okay, so there's a shortcut. We can say, okay, well, it's x and negative 3 and x and negative 6, and we can be done. But I want to show you the lengthier method so that you can refer back to this, tie it in with what we did previously. So Friday, we were working on if we had four terms, grouping them together and then pulling out the GCF. Do you remember doing that on Friday, that worksheet? We did it Thursday and Friday of last week. So I'm going to rewrite this as x squared minus 3x minus 6x plus 18. Would everybody agree that these two things are the same? Okay, so now, since there's four terms, we can group the first two, group the second two. What can I factor out of this set of parentheses? What are both of these terms divisible by? They're both divisible by an x, right? So if I pull an x to the outside, what would I multiply that x by to get me back to x squared? X. What would I multiply negative 3 by, or this x by, to get me back to negative 3x? Negative 3. All right, so look at these terms. What can I factor out of here? Looks like they're both divisible by 6. I want to factor out a negative 6. Negative 6 times a positive x gets me back to negative 6x. Negative 6 times a negative 3 is positive 18. Now look, we pull these together, put them in one set of parentheses. X minus 6, both of those are being times by x minus 3, and this is our answer. So obviously everybody likes the shortcut, but the reason that I want to show you the longer method is because sometimes there'll be a leading coefficient other than 1. We are not going to look at that too much this year, but you'll get into that more in Algebra 2. When the leading coefficient is something other than 1, you have to do it long ways like this. So I wanted to help you make that connection to how this relates to what we were doing, and so that you'll be able to refer back to this in the future. All right, so moving on to the next one, we're going to factor x squared plus 5x minus 14. So we looked for our factors that multiply to give us negative 14, add to give us 5. We can jump straight into the answer and just do x minus 2 and x plus 7. And that is our answer. Or we can go ahead, just for the sake of practice, go ahead and write it out. X squared minus 2x plus 7x minus 14. Okay, I'm going to group the first two together. I'm going to group the second two together. I'm going to look for the GCF. It is x. If I factor out that GCF, that leaves me with x minus 2. Factor out the GCF. It's a positive 7. That leaves me with x minus 2. Again, we pull that x plus 7 together. It's being multiplied by x minus 2. You can write it this way if it's easier for you. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the minus is with the 2 and the plus is with the 7. All right, go ahead and try the next one. Back to math. So, what did we get for our factors of negative 4 that add to give us a negative 3? I'm thinking negative 4 times a positive 1. And we can go ahead and write it out. X squared plus 1x minus 4x minus 4. Look to see what I can factor out of here. I can factor an x out of the first set of parentheses, leaving me with x plus 1. Looks like I can factor out a negative 4, again, leaving me with x plus 1. If I group them together, I get x minus 4 is being multiplied by x plus 1. We could have taken the shortcut and said, okay, x and negative 4, and x and a positive 1. Okay, go ahead and try this last one and see if you can come up with an answer. Where did it go? There it is. I'm going to assume that you're all realizing that there is nothing that multiplies to give me 8 that adds to give me negative 4. So that means that this is prime and cannot be factored. Not factorable. So there's nothing that multiplies to give me 8. We've got 1 and 8, 2 and 4, negative 1 times negative 8, negative 2 times negative 4. None of those will add together to give me negative 4. So we say this is not factorable. And one last thing I want to show you before I give you some problems to try on your own is back up here. There's a way to check yourself. We're looking at x squared minus 3x minus 4. If you come to Desmos and type those in, x squared minus 3x minus 4 gives me this blue-shaped graph. This is called a parabola. It's spelled like parabola. It's called a parabola. And then when we factored it, we got x plus 1 times x minus 4. If we did our factoring correctly, those lines should be directly over top of each other like they are, as you can see. And you might be wondering what this is, this red thing. This is written up here on the top of the board in the classroom. I posted this. Livy came up with this and wanted me to give it to you guys as a challenge problem to see if you could complete the heart. So if anybody can do that and brings it to me by the end of the week, I'll give you 5 bonus points. You're not allowed to help each other or Google it. I want thinking. All right, so we've got some more problems that we're going to do really quickly. I would like for you guys to try these. They're written up here on the board in class. X squared plus 7x plus 6. I want you to factor it, and I will give you a hint. These are all factorable. X squared minus 8x plus 12. And x squared plus 3x minus 40. And this is your assignment to finish today.